Picture this. It's a quiet Sunday night, October 30th, 1938. Families across America are gathered around their radios. On one station, there's some nice dance music playing, people are half listening, maybe doing the dishes. When suddenly the music cuts out, a panicked voice breaks in. We are receiving reports of strange explosions on the planet Mars. Wait, something's happening on a farm in Grover's Mill, New Jersey. What happened next is still one of the wildest nights in American history. This is the true story of how a 23-year-old genius named Orson Welles accidentally convinced millions of people that Martians had invaded Earth and almost started a full-blown national panic. So stick around, because tonight you're about to learn what really happened and why the official story might not be the whole truth. Let's go back to 1938. America was on edge. Hitler was on the move in Europe, and at home, the Great Depression was still raging. The radio was the center of family life. It was the social media of its day. Now enter Orson Welles. He was already a Broadway legend at just 23, and he had a radio show on CBS called the Mercury Theater on the air. The problem? The show had terrible ratings. Nobody was listening. For Halloween Eve, Welles decided to adapt H.G. Wells' classic sci-fi novel, The War of the Worlds, but with a game-changing twist. Instead of setting it in old-timey England, he'd update it to modern-day America and present it as a series of breaking news bulletins. At 8:00 p.m. Eastern Time, the show started normally enough. An announcer said, "The Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations present Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the air, The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells." Then, some pretty boring dance music started playing, just like any other radio program. But 12 minutes in, everything changed. A fake announcer interrupted. "Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt this program with a special bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News. At 20 minutes before 8, Professor Farrell of the Mount Jennings Observatory in Chicago reports observing several explosions of incandescent gas on the planet Mars." Now, most people who were actually listening from the beginning knew it was a play. They heard the intro. But here is the crucial part. Millions of Americans were not listening to CBS at 8 p.m. They were tuned into the #1 show in the country, The Chase and Sanborn Hour on NBC, starring a ventriloquist and his dummy. Around 8:12 p.m., that show took its first commercial break. Millions of people started turning the dial to find something else to listen to. And they landed right in the middle of a Martian invasion of New Jersey. They missed the opening disclaimer. All they heard was chaos. An on-the-scene reporter, played by an actor, described a terrifying metal cylinder opening up. He screamed, "Good heavens, something's writhing out of the shadow like a gray snake. I can see the thing's face now. It's indescribable. Oh my God, a jet of flame is shooting from a mirror on its head. It's turning toward the crowd." Then, just static, dead air. And that's when America lost its mind. Real police switchboards lit up like Christmas trees. In Newark, New Jersey, entire apartment buildings emptied out as people ran into the streets screaming. Some were carrying babies. Others had wet towels over their faces, thinking poison gas was in the air. In Harlem, churches filled with people praying for salvation. One man in the Bronx called the power company demanding they shut off all electricity so the Martians could untrack them. Highways leading out of New Jersey were completely jammed. People abandoned their cars and ran into the fields to hide. In Indianapolis, a woman ran into a church in the middle of a service, screamed, "New York is destroyed. It's the end of the world. You might as well go home to die," and then fainted. A college student from Princeton actually drove toward Grover's Mill to see the invasion for himself, only to find a bunch of local farmers with shotguns guarding a water tower they thought was a Martian war machine. The New York Times reported that thousands believed the invasion was real. So, Why did so many people fall for it? Well, aside from tuning in late, the context of the time was perfect for this kind of panic. Mars was actually in the news. Real astronomers had recently reported seeing what they thought might be canals or even vegetation on the planet. And most importantly, radio was a trusted source of news. People were used to hearing serious bulletins about the growing crisis in Europe. If a reporter sounded authentic, you believed them. Wells also used incredibly realistic sound effects. Police sirens, crowd screams, and the horrifying hiss of the Martian heat ray, which was actually based on real military experiments. It all felt too real. As the panic spread, CBS executives were terrified they were about to get shut down by the government. At the end of the hour-long broadcast, Orson Welles came back on the air and calmly explained it was all a show. He said, "If your doorbell rings tonight and nobody's there, that was no Martian. It was Halloween." The next day, a 23-year-old Welles held a press conference. He looked like he hadn't slept a wink, but he seemed to be enjoying the chaos. He famously said, "We are deeply sorry for any panic we may have caused." But the broadcast made him an overnight legend. The Mercury Theater, which had no sponsors, was suddenly sponsored by Campbell's Soup. Hollywood came calling, and Wells's career exploded. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. Some modern historians argue that the newspapers massively exaggerated the scale of the panic. They hated radio for stealing their advertising dollars and readers, so they used the broadcast as an opportunity to make radio seem dangerous and irresponsible. A study done at the time estimated that maybe 1.2 million people truly believed the invasion was happening. But even if it was only a few 100,000 people, that's still an incredible number. It's easy for us to laugh now, thinking about people panicking over a radio play. But are we really any smarter today? Think about it. We have deep fake audio that can make it sound like a world leader is declaring war. We have AI-generated videos of UFOs landing in major cities that go viral on TikTok. In 1938, one radio play convinced thousands that the world was ending. Today, a single blurry video or a fake headline can convince millions of almost anything. So the next time you see a shocking headline or a wild video online, just ask yourself, did you hear the disclaimer at the beginning? Or did you just tune in right when the Martians landed? That's the real story of the 1938 War of the Worlds panic. If this blew your mind, smash that like button. And I want to know in the comments, be honest, do you think you would have fallen for it back in 1938? And if you want more insane but true stories from history, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you don't miss our next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.